what happens is you're underfunded and over leveraged as a result of it. You're always going too large into and one single trade takes you out. Blake, the question is, what is the benefit of having a funded account versus a brokerage-based account?
That's actually a huge difference, and that's with if you have only a $500 or even a $5,000 account, you are so restricted on some of the more expensive commodities or indices in this case, such as the US 30. If you want even a single US 30 entry or anything, you have to have so much involved all front percentage of your account.
Yes, especially, and if you're still trading crypto. The margins on crypto are so low now because of the volatility. You know, you're trading bit right now, you really do need a much larger notional account. And so that's actually a really good point. It's not just the fact that you burn less capital when you're doing an assessment versus your own money, but that you actually can have more flexibility in the instruments of choices because you have bigger notional accounts that you're trading with, notional value, right?
Right, and then usually you get leverage on top of that as well. Usually very, very aggressive leverage.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
200 I saw on the props. I tell you what, so on that note there, Boris, I mean, you both make some good points, but you know, over the years I've been in the education space. You know, I've seen many traders come through the door, and I've seen many failures. You know, pretty much that we all know the statistics out there, and I really put it down to the number one reason why most are failing is because of they're underfunded. Because you know they have this vision, they want to be a trader, they don't like their jobs, they don't like their their current lifestyle. They want to be a trader. It's got the glamorous feel, you know, it's got the glamorous look. So they want to be a trader. And they, you know, even with a $5,000 account, now in that we always say a 5% monthly return is a really good monthly return. You know, if you compound up 5%, it's 80%. I haven't just done that. I know that because I've used this line before, but it's about 80% on the year. It's a massive return. You put $5,000 in the account, you make 5%, you make $250. It doesn't even pay my internet bill.
Correct. And I think that's the problem is that to trade properly, they need to trade for pennies. You know, it's like playing poker. It's like playing poker for nickels and pennies to trade it. To learn the game properly. But they all want to trade it for thousands of dollars. And having a small stub of a personal account is, like you said, basically it's always what happens is you're underfunded and over leveraged as a result of it. You're always going too large into and one single trade takes you out. So you have these lottery ticket stories where a guy takes $5,000. He happens to be, I don't know, short Bitcoin the day FTX blows up, and there's a 20% move in one day his way, so that 5,000 turns into 50,000. Now he's got actually the right amount of nominal money to be able to trade carefully, and then from that point on, he builds himself. But that is literally, we all know.
There's people winning the lottery this weekend. There will be people won it last week. They are lottery tickets. Certainly at the City Traders here, we are trying to get people into the mindset of a City trader and trade for a living. I mean, and you know, most people cannot trade for a living with a $5,000 startup float. So I think.
Actually, it's a sort of a side question to this. Blake, what do you think is the reasonable notional account that somebody who, you know, wants to pass prop trading should trade with? You know, because obviously prop trading accounts come in flavors from anywhere from 25,000 to, let's say, $250,000. Some firms will even go up to $1 million. But let's just say like 80%, I think, of all, and you know, you speak better than I do, but it seems to me 80%, basically your choice is 25,000 to $250,000. But it's expensive. The $250,000 is expensive to assess, and you know, it's a lot of money. And actually, it's interesting. Here's an interesting thing. I found that this is just my own personal, is that I trade 100,000 assessment perfectly. Million assessment was a freaking disaster. It was a demo money, but it was just a freaking disaster for me. I could not handle the the volatility.
Yeah,
so what do you think? What do you think, Blake? What do you think is the sweet spot there?
I have to agree with you about the $100,000 mark. I think it's such a great round number where it makes all the mental math really easy to handle. And that really, the mental aspect, as we all know, is a very huge part of trading. It definitely cannot be understated of how important the mental aspect is. And when you have such a round number to start off with, it makes everything much more easy to comprehend in your head. I think it's very, very beneficial. I also really appreciate when the firm allows you to have the full 10 or even more than 10, such as having like a 12% maximum loss as well. I think that's really great to have that extra room, so you know that you can lose all the normal amount of loss plus a little bit more and still be in the clear. I think these kind of things really help the trader a lot by having those like round numbers to deal with.
Yeah. So speaking of that, by the way, what are some of the variances that you've seen on up to down? Like, as I said, 10 up, 5 down to me is the generic formula that a lot of people do. But what is the lowest performance to the highest drawdown that you've seen as ratios? Where are the extremes on that?
The highest highest.
So the smaller, I've seen 8%. Like some firms will say you need to make 8%. On the other end of it, some firms I've seen are willing to let you lose 12% drawdown. Like what's the best and the worst that you've seen in this business?
I think 12 and 8 are the best of those each sides are the best of what I've seen. So an 8% requirement to pass phase 1 with a 12% max daily loss limit, I think is the absolute best that I've ever seen.
Have you ever seen?
I think what's really crucial on this, as you said, 10. In fact, ours is 10 and 5, but there's variations. But I think what's important, and one of the most important rules is the trail, to allow someone to grow the account. So basically, trailing off equity and not off balance. Trading off balance, not off equity. Equity is like open positions. So you're in an open position, it's going really well, then it pulls back. You might be 7 or 8% up, but it pulls back, and all of a sudden you're locked out on a perfectly good trade, but you just gave back on a trail stop. So I think that's really important to grow the account over time, to have that rule, rather than just the 10% and the 5%. I mean, we will basically, once you get to 5% profit, your trade is locked in at break even, and you can trade that. You start at 100 grand, you can take that up to 200 grand. Move it back down to 100. Move that back down to 80 grand or whatever, and you're still not going to get locked out. So that I think is the most important thing.
Right. The volatility in equity versus, the volatility in open equity versus the volatility in balance is a key difference. Very good point.